So the war in heaven, supposedly, Lucifer decided that he wanted to be God, thought that he could be God. And so he convinced a third of the angels to fight on his side. They fought against God, lost the battle, and then were cast down to earth, locked up in chains, until the Battle of Armageddon, the battle at Megiddo. Then they're supposed to be released, have this last final battle against Jesus, and then forever thrown into the lake of fire. That's the story that we've been told. But what about the other side of the story? We all know that there is always two sides to every story. There's the sides of the winners, the sides of the losers. If it's a tie, it's the side of whoever encampment you're in and whoever encampment they're in. But philosophically, the stories are based on whichever group is in power, and those are the ones we follow. So when I think about, and I've thought about this for decades, not that I agree that there was actually this war in heaven, but philosophically, the war in heaven that happens in your own mind is the war to which I'm speaking of. But I thought about something, and I want to share this with you guys, and I would love to hear your comments on it. Let's just say that there actually was this war in heaven, and we've only been hearing the one side version of this war. What would be the other side's version? And as I thought about this, I thought about creation. So if the angels were this God's first creation, first children, but they all had free will, they all came into awareness of themselves and had the awareness of knowing that this is God. Now, from the God that we see in the Bible, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say and think that this God would have required from the angels the same type of servitude that he requires from man. The same type of choice, either love me or go to hell, either submit to me or go to hell, either understand that I can do whatever the hell I want to do with you, regardless if it's immoral, but hold you to a higher moral standard, or go to hell. Beings that have come into their own consciousness, their own self-awareness, their own agency, would then say, at least some, would say no. Just as there are those who live and have always lived on this planet who have rejected this God, there would be those of that conscious level that would also reject this God because the logic doesn't play. How do you give us free will, but yet you only give us two choices? Either love you or suffer through an eternity of pain and hell. That is not free will. That is not free will choice. That's Sophie's choice. That's a no-win situation. Either become my slave or go and burn in hell. Either kill your son or kill your daughter. Don't choose either one or yourself and I kill everybody. So Sophie had to make a choice and she chose her daughter and her son was killed. And then she suffered mentally for the rest of her life. Either love this God through fear or not. And you suffer through hell. That is not free will. So I would imagine these beings did not revolt because they wanted to be God. They revolted because they were given the free will of choice and saw the unfairness and the hypocrisy of this being and decided that I'd rather be separated from you, or I'd rather endure this than to be your slave. There are those who love and enjoy being a slave. They will, yes, a boss, and fit right on in. While there will always be those who would choose that if I have the free will, I'd rather not be a slave. I'd rather exist in hell or not exist at all than to be your slave. Philosophically, this is what I think the other side of the story is. that if these angels were actual beings that existed and they were the first creation of this God, then their revolt was not a revolt of desiring to be God, but a revolt of desiring to have their own agency. And many will say, well, the choice is either be with God or not be with God and be in hell. But there are other choices. There are other choices. The other choices are to explore your own agency, to explore your own ability to exist. And some will say, well, what purpose would there be if you're not believing in this God? If there is no heaven or hell, there's no heaven to strive for. If there's no God to come and love, then what would be the purpose? The purpose is self-discovery. The purpose is understanding the agency of yourself and then understanding the agency of the next being and the next being and the next being. To understand all the marvels that are created within the universe, the pleasures and the pains, the joy, the excitement, the love, to experience all the ranges of emotion and all the natural things of nature that exist. It's like some people say, why travel to another country? What's the purpose? The experience is the purpose. The experience. And in an infinite universe, the opportunities for experience, the opportunity for growth, the opportunity of emotional experience is infinite. It is impossible for there to be an infinite universe inside of an infinite mind, if you will, or being in the presence of an infinite God and the universe not be infinite. If the universe is infinite, then your growth becomes infinite. When you only lock up purpose as being with this God or in hell, then you have diminished who you are and your agency. You have now said that you are small, not realizing how large you really are and how large you can become. So I think the other side of the story is the mere fact that these angels realize that if you're going to give me free will, then free will and free choice, if you were a free and loving God, would be for me to explore my own agency, not the small box agency that this God desired to put the angels in and that this God desires to put man in, is this small box of agency, knowing full well that there's an entire world outside of it. That this God said that I'm going to make you like an ant and make you where you only think that the world is as big as a yard when the world is the world itself. It's areas of unexplored territory greater than your imagine, greater than anything you can imagine. But instead, this guy wants to enslave you to think that the world is just one yard when it's much greater. That's the other side of the story. If I were to believe in these stories, I would be more likely to believe the other side of the story, the other side of the coin. And this is why we continue to expand who we are and expand and continue to grow and continue to define our own agency. Because if this God truly gave us free will, then we should have the right to expand our agency to to a multitude of directions, not just the enslavement to him or burn in hell. That's a small mind. That's a small box. That's a small God. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.